Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Toya and I'm a mental health therapist licensed in the states of Missouri, Illinois, and California. And on this channel, I make content that supports overall spiritual, mental, and physical well-being. Today, I am here to talk to you about catching and reframing negative thoughts. There are categories that our negative thoughts often fall into. So today I want to share with you what some of those categories are. This is not an all-inclusive list, but I want to share not only the categories, but also some ideas, some strategies, if you will, that you could use to help reshape these thoughts that you have when they're negative. I often tell people to look at negative thoughts like when you order an Uber, right? When you order an Uber or driver to come pick you up, ride share of whatever kind that you choose to use, what they typically do is they'll send you the name of the person that's going to come. Some apps even send you the picture of the person. The person comes, you get to verify that they are indeed the person that's supposed to be picking you up. And then you get in the car and you're in the car with that person until they drop you off at your next destination. Well, when they pull up, if you have a driver that pulls up that is slurring their words, look disheveled, maybe smell like they've been drinking all day, you definitely have the right to say, I'm not going to get in your car. Nope. Keep it pushing. I'm going to call somebody else or I'll walk to my destination. And then, of course, if your driver pull up and they're looking professional, clean, coherent, ready to go, no indication of it being a safety concern to ride with that person, then most likely you get in that car until they drop you off at your destination. Look at negative thoughts like Uber drivers, right? First of all, we all can have negative thoughts. Negative thoughts can happen as fast as I can snap my fingers. So don't beat yourself up when you catch yourself having them. But when those negative thoughts pull up, when you notice you're having a negative thought, much like with that analogy I used with having an Uber driver, you have to make the decision on if that's the thought that's going to drive you around all day, because all our thoughts, they do come attached to an emotion. So if you're having a thought that's triggering anger, a thought that's triggering depression or anxiety, and you decide to let that be your final thought, your conclusive thought, if that thought sticks with you all day, you're attached to that emotion all day until you decide to get out of that car. But if you're in a situation and you find yourself having some negative thoughts, you have a choice to also say, you know what, I'm acknowledging that what I'm thinking right now ain't helping me out. This thought is going to continue making me feel distressed, making me feel a way I don't want to feel. So instead of attaching myself to this thought, I'm going to use a strategy that's going to reshape this thought to where it's a valid thought. I'm not lying to myself. I'm not sticking my head in the sand about the situation, but I'm going to come up with a different perception that is more calming, more acceptable, one that won't trigger such an intense, undesirable emotion. Hence, like my analogy with the Uber driver. You get into the car with the driver that you trust, the one that you feel safest with, and the one that pulls up looking like they might be some problems or cause some problems, you let them go. Same thing with your thoughts. So I'm going to share with you some categories that our thoughts fall into. The more you are aware of these categories, the more insightful you can become with catching yourself when you have these negative thoughts. And then, like I say, with every category that I share with you, I'm going to suggest a strategy you can use to help reshape or reframe that thought. The first category I want to talk about is a category called rumination. That is when you're focusing on the symptoms of your emotional distress, focusing on the trigger of that distress, maybe even on the consequences of that distress, and you're not choosing to look at the possible outcomes or the solutions. So when we find ourselves ruminating on a negative thought, again, that can trigger and intensify emotions that we don't desire to feel, be it if that's anger, depression, guilt, just to name a few. So one strategy I want to suggest to you is reattribution. Reattribution is a strategy that helps you focus on what the solution is instead of focusing on the things you can't change. Reattribution actually reminds me of the serenity prayer. The serenity prayer goes, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can change, and the wisdom to know the difference between the two. So reattribution is basically saying the same thing. It's saying, look at the whole situation that you're dealing with. Look at the factors that are out of your control. Look at the factors that are within your control. And now focus or reattribute your energy and your attention on what you can do about it to change the situation instead of focusing on what you can't do, what you can't change, what you can't solve. It's like trying to walk through a brick wall when all you have to do is take 3 steps to the right or the left and go through an open door. So reattribution is really good when you find yourself in those ruminating type thoughts. And then another exercise you can do that can help with eliminating or stopping yourself from ruminating over negative thoughts is maybe creating a gratitude journal. creating a gratitude list or a gratitude journal can be used for almost any time you're finding yourself in a negative headspace, because there's so many things that do go right in our lives, and some of those things we're so used to them going right that we have to stop and remind ourselves, man, God, thank you for being able to even allow me to continue to experience this blessing that others actually do not have. So having a gratitude journal or creating a gratitude journal can be really effective to get you out of that ruminating or any type of negative headspace. So rumination is one category. Reattribution is a strategy you can use to stop yourself from falling into that category. The second category is overthinking. Now, I think we all can have moments in life where we're in a situation and we tend to overthink that situation. And overthinking is when you're looking at the situation, you're looking at all possible outcomes, all possible solutions, all possible angles, and all possible decisions. But for some, this could be like a daily thing about almost any situation that they find themselves in. And overthinking can be hard to stop. It can be hard to distract or change the way that you view things, especially if you're an overthinker. But hard doesn't mean impossible. There are strategies that can help you stop being such an overthinker with everything that you come across in life. One strategy that I suggest that people use when they find themselves falling in the overthinking category is do a cost and benefit analysis. Back in my day, we just really called that a pros and cons list. But take the situation that you're in. Write down all of the negative things that you can think about pertaining to that situation. And once you purge yourself of all of the negative things that you can think about, then write down all of the positive things about that situation. And really think out of the box. Be honest, but don't leave no stone unturned, right? Think about what you gained, what you learned, what you were able to avoid that you're happy that you avoided because you were in that situation. Write down every positive and negative thing you can think about. I like this strategy because it's good for two reasons. For one, it literally provides a brain shift. It refocuses what you're thinking about. I say start with the negative because you're already in a negative headspace, so purge yourself of that negativity. But then it literally says, now look for the positive. Stop focusing on just the negative and go and look and search for the positive things. So the intensity of whatever mood you're in should start automatically minimizing. I'm not saying the mood will go away, but the intensity in which you're experiencing that mood should minimize just simply because you're changing the way that you're thinking. And then the other benefit of using that strategy, once you do it, and I always suggest to people that they literally write it or type it down. Some strategies you can just do in your head, do out loud. But this strategy I do suggest, like when you're done, you want it looking back at you. So write it down or type it down. Once you do that, it helps you look at the whole picture. You're not just focusing on the negative or the positive, but you can see the whole picture. So if it's a situation that you actually got to make a decision on, you can make a decision from the logical point of view versus the emotional point of view. So overthinking can be one category, but using that cost and benefit analysis can be a strategy that can really help you break that overthinking nature. The next category I want to talk about is all or nothing thinking. Now, this category reminds me of how a perfectionist would think, but please, we can fall into any of these categories at any moment. So I'm not saying that you have to be a perfectionist to fall into this category. But the all or nothing thinking basically means that a person is having thoughts about something. They have an expectation for things to be a certain way. They plan for things to be a certain way. They desire and want and expect for things to be the way that they have planned it out. And if it isn't exactly how they planned it, exactly how they expect it, or exactly how they desire it, then they view it as all bad. It's hard for them to see the positive. There's like no middle area in all or nothing thinking. So it's either perfect or it's all bad. That's what all or nothing thinking category basically means. To get yourself out of that way of thinking, you can incorporate a strategy called shades of gray. Shades of gray basically means ask yourself, how bad is it really? Are there positive things you can pull out of the situation, even though it might not have went exactly the way you wanted it to go, exactly how you wanted it to go? Proverbs 19:21 tells us, many are the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails. So when you're finding yourself in all or nothing thinking, use the shades of gray, because shades of gray will be able to help you say, all right, maybe there are some positive things I can pull out from this. Maybe I didn't plan for it to go this way, but there are benefits from it actually occurring this way versus the way that I planned for it to occur. So that's another category, another strategy you can use to break yourself from being in that category of all or nothing thinking. The fourth category I want to list is labeling. Now, labeling is when we use certain words that pretty much does exactly what it's called. You're labeling yourself using terms, I like to call them gut punches. You're punching yourself. Like say if you've been working all day all day for the last 2 or 3 days, and you have plans on washing clothes tonight, or you got plans on cooking dinner tonight. But instead, you might decide, I'm gonna wait another day to wash clothes because I'm really tired, maybe even sleep deprived, or I'm gonna pick up a healthy salad instead of making my own food at home tonight. Be it if it's for yourself or you plan on cooking for your family, but instead you pick up something healthy for the family to eat. So labeling would mean it'll sound like you're telling yourself, I'm so lazy because I didn't wash those clothes. I'm so neglectful. This is the second night this week I haven't cooked dinner for my family. Labeling means that you're gut punching yourself. You're using certain labels that are most likely inaccurate to begin with. So a good strategy to use to help break yourself from falling into the category of negatively labeling yourself would be define the terms. What exactly does it mean when you say lazy? What exactly does it mean when you use the term neglectful? Are you actually that? Are you actually being lazy? Are you actually being neglectful? So reframe that. It might sound something like, I'm tired. I haven't gotten as much sleep. Even though I planned on washing clothes tonight, I'm going to go ahead and allow myself to get some extra rest and put it off another day. It's okay. Or if it's, the food example that I gave, then instead of saying I'm neglectful because this is the second night in a row that I haven't cooked dinner, maybe saying something like, I'm going to get something healthy for my family to eat. I'm still feeding them, so that's a good thing right there. And it's okay. I just need to get some extra rest. I'll plan an even better meal tomorrow if need be. So be careful with the labels you attach to yourself because, again, the words we use have emotional effects. Just like when we speak to someone else, they have an emotional response. We're not the exception. When we're talking to ourselves, our self-talk will trigger an emotional response within us. So be careful of that, the labeling. The next category I want to talk to you about, jumping to conclusions. Jumping to conclusions overall is predicting a bad outcome, even though you don't have any evidence to prove it. They break that down in 2 ways. One way that you can look at jumping to conclusions is fortune telling. You're predicting no matter what you do, it's not going to be the outcome you want. So that might sound like no matter how much I work out, I'm just not going to lose these last 10 pounds. No matter how much I study for this test, I'm not going to be able to ace it. So you're just predicting it's going to be a bad outcome. Or mind reading. Mind reading is predicting that someone's thinking something bad about you, even though it hasn't been proven. So maybe you make a mistake at work and you say something to yourself like, my boss is going to think I'm dumb, labeling as well. Or my boss is going to think I'm not capable of doing my job because I messed up. Your boss have never said that to you, but that's what you assume they're thinking. Another example of mind reading is assuming you know someone's intent. Someone does something, you might not like that they did it, so you tell yourself they're only doing it to get under my skin. They're trying to make me mad. They're trying to bug me. All of those are jumping to conclusions because unless you got evidence to prove it, you're assuming that's the case. But our assumptions, our thoughts, sometimes we can try to make that reality even though that's not really what's going on. So to break that jumping to conclusions way of thinking, the strategy I suggest is a strategy called check the facts. See if there's evidence that can actually prove if your boss is indeed thinking that of you, or if you are indeed gonna fail that test. If you studied, if you did everything that you needed to do. Check the facts. Look for evidence that supports either your negative thought, because sometimes when we check the facts, we might find that the negative thought is true, but sometimes when we check the facts, we might find that the negative thought isn't true at all. And if we can prove that it's not true, if we can turn our jumping to conclusions thought into an invalid thought, it's easier to let go of that thought. So when you're finding yourself jumping to conclusions, one strategy you can use, and there are multiple strategies you can use for all of these categories, you guys, but one strategy I would suggest is to check the facts. Another category I want to mention to you is a category that I like to call the woulda, coulda, shoulda category. The woulda, coulda, shoulda category basically means that I like to call this your hindsight moments. Something might have occurred and you're telling yourself, man, I could have done this. I would have done that. I should have done that. But when you have those type of woulda, coulda, shoulda statements, they often lead to feelings that we don't like feeling, like guilt, shame, irritation. And if you have them about other people, what other people would have, could have, and should have done, it often leads to feelings like anger, resentment, frustration, just to name a few. So to break that woulda, coulda, shoulda thinking category that we can sometimes fall into, I would say use a strategy called the straightforward approach. The straightforward approach means you just simply replace that negative thought with a more positive thought. So you can still have your hindsight moments. Maybe I bought a pair of shoes that cost $500 and then a bill rolled in and I don't have the money to pay for that bill. Well, instead of saying to myself, I shouldn't have bought those shoes, which still might be accurate, but there's a way you can say it to where it's not a gut punch. So instead of saying I shouldn't have bought those shoes, you can say something like, next time before I splurge on such an expensive gift for myself, I'm gonna budget. Next time before I buy shoes or purses or anything that might cost a lot of money, I'm gonna first make sure I got all my bills paid for the month and then go out and spend that money. Or next time I'm gonna put a little bit to the side to where regardless to what bills are coming in, this money that I'm putting to the side will be for me to spend it on whatever I want to spend it on, so I don't gotta have that attached guilt. You can still learn from the past mistakes, could have, would have, and should have done differently, but talk to yourself, speak to yourself in a way that is much more encouraging, uplifting, and motivating instead of, again, what I like to call gut punching yourself. So break the woulda, coulda, shouldas, and replace it with a more straightforward, positive thought. The last category I want to talk to you about, and again, this is not an all-inclusive list. There are many other categories I'm not even mentioning during this video, but there is a negative thinking category called discounting the positive. That basically says that you've done something, you're looking at a situation even, and you're saying that none of the good things even matter because all you can really focus on at that time is what didn't go right, the negative thing. So an example of that might be you're delivering a speech, you're giving a presentation, if you will, and you got 3 main bullet points that you want to talk about. And time runs out and you only had time to go over 2 of those bullet points. But at the end of this presentation, people are walking up to you, telling you how great you did. You might have even gotten a standing ovation. You had plenty of interaction during your presentation. I mean, all good feedback to indicate it was pretty much a successful presentation. But you tell yourself, none of that even matters because it was still this one last point I wasn't able to talk about. I worked so hard and planned all of this, and it was this one thing I wasn't able to do. So all of this good feedback and all of this data that I was able to share, it don't matter because I missed this 3rd point. It's like you're discounting all the other positive things that you could focus on. So in order to help you break that cycle of discounting the positive, I would say use one of my favorite strategies next to reattribution. It'd be a strategy called the double standard approach. The double standard approach basically says, what would you tell a friend or a loved one, a family member, your child, someone you really love, respect, whoever that may be? What would you tell them if they were in the exact same situation? If you had someone call you up and say, hey, I just got finished giving this presentation. People responded well. They asked me to come back. I got all this good feedback, but man, I messed up. It was not a good presentation because I forgot to talk about or didn't have time to talk about this final bullet point. What would you tell them? Would you tell them, yeah, you messed up. That sucks. That's pretty bad, dude. You got to do better. What were you thinking? Or would you tell them something like, you know what, I get it, but it's okay. Look at all the good feedback that you got. Next time you can do this to try to make it a little bit better. But look at how receptive people was to the information you was able to provide. You will encourage them, right? You will motivate them. You will lift them up. Do that for yourself. Be your own best friend. I think one of the reasons why I love the double standard approach is because some people don't have a lot of support. Some people do. And I always say it's not the quantity of your support, it's always the quality of your support. And by support, I'm talking about other people you can rely on and call on. But even if you have a bunch of people or a few people in your support system, that don't mean they're always able to be contacted when you need to contact them. Maybe they're busy. Maybe they don't feel well. Maybe something's going on to where you just can't reach them. You can always show up for yourself. You can always be your own best friend. You can always affirm and lift yourself up. So double standard approach basically says do that. Affirm yourself. Give yourself positive feedback instead of gut punching yourself, beating yourself up with those negative words. Self-talk matters. What we say to ourselves matter. Be your own best friend. Treat yourself the way you want other people to treat you. That's a start. I hope this video was helpful for you. If you do like this video, go ahead and hit the like button. If you're not a part of the family already, go ahead and subscribe. If this is helpful to you and it might be helpful to someone else, go ahead and share it with someone. And as always, be blessed.